and make data-driven decisions with confidence. So one of the programs we are currently running here at Blossom Pro is the IIBA Certification in Business Data Analytics program. And the Certification in Business Data Analytics program is designed for professionals and individuals who want to strengthen their ability to apply business data analytics in their real-world businesses and environments, and also to demonstrate their expertise through a globally recognized certification. So the CBDA program, or the Certified Business Data Analytics program, provides individuals with knowledge and skills that is needed to understand the business needs, to analyze data, to generate insights, and to support better business decision making. We will share more about the Certified Business Data Analytics program and what individuals can expect as we go along. But for now, we are excited to have you here, and we hope today's session will be valuable to you. Now, with that brief introduction about Blossom Pro and the CBDA program, let's get into today's session. So today we are excited to have here with us a speaker who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in data, analytics, technology, and digital transformation. And he will be sharing with us valuable insights and I'm sure we all have a lot to learn from his experience and his expertise. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today. Roger Michael Kayumba is our speaker for the day, and he's the African Data and Analytics Consultant at GB Foods Africa. He's also a certified data protection officer with extensive experience in data science, geospatial technologies, project management, and digital transformation. Prior to Roger's current role, he worked at Deloitte as an assistant manager with technology consulting unit firm. Also, Roger is the co-founder of Transcend Data Alliance, which develop experts and professionals who collaborate to drive innovation. Roger is passionate about leveraging data, AI, and emerging technologies to drive. So please join me in giving Roger a warm virtual welcome. You can send some reactions in there for us. Roger, you can take over now.
Yeah, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Hello, can everyone hear me?
You are audible. I can hear you loud and clear.
Nice. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen soon. Just let me know once it's live. So let me know once you can see my screen.
I can see the screen.
Okay, I hope it's the correct screen because I have like 3 screens on. So just let me know what you see.
The one I see with a lady with some graphs, and then there is this transformational role of data in decision making.
Nice. You are on track. Okay. All right, so Danielle, thank you very much for the introduction. I usually don't like all those intros, but I mean, you had to do it. So, a good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are connecting from. I don't know if you are in a different time zone, but I mean, wherever you are from, good day to you. So today, this is going to be our topic of discussion, and I mean, for me, I prefer this conversation to really be two-way. It's not just me doing presentations, but I'll do my best to leave enough time. And Daniel, please keep me in check because I can get overly excited when speaking on these topics. So
All
just keep
right,
me
I
in check.
will. I will.
And let's make sure at least we have enough time for the audience to also ask questions. Okay. All right. So the topic is a transformational role of
All
data in
right.
decision making. All right. Um, when this topic was first presented to me, to be sincere, I feel we all know that data is transformational. I mean, no two ways about it. But today I want us to do the dirty work. What I mean dirty work is we are not going to talk about AI. We are not going to talk about Power BI and the fanciful tools that you know. I want to consciously bring your mind to the background work that needs to be done before you get the exciting stuff that are ready for display, the dashboards, the conversational AIs that you know, right? That is what this conversation is going to be about, right? So I'll first like to really confirm that yes, indeed, data is transformational, no two ways about it. All right. That's not really the conversation of today. Our conversation today is to really focus our attention on making sure that we clearly understand that there's a lot of work that needs to be done behind the scenes. There's a lot of trying to clean up our books, trying to clean up our house to make sure that we are ready to ingest the transformational power of data. All right, so that is really going to be our conversation. So clearly, data is everywhere, and no two ways about it. A lot more times, I keep hearing people saying like data is becoming cheaper, but I don't think so. I mean, because as LLMs or foundational models are growing, data is becoming more expensive, right? People are beginning to guard their data more because of the hunger a lot of the big foundational modeling companies are doing, right? The third point is decisions can be measured clearly. So again, I'm just trying to tie this to the topic, just to let you know that the conversation of today is not really looking at is data transformational for decision making, but it is. Let's go beyond that conversation. Okay. Now, the real question here is we need to really understand if we are in a good position, right, to trust data enough. We are in a good position to really utilize data, right? That is really going to be our conversation for the day, right? So this is where I really start my official presentation. I'd first like to put things into context, okay? So I would like to bring to your notice some uncomfortable truths when it comes to data, right? Now, the first uncomfortable truth is 85% of data projects usually don't bring business value. That is a statistic that Gartner has clearly outlined. It's a scary statistics. Imagine every single organization, the Fortune 500, the 400, all the big organizations, right? Close to 85% of data projects across most organizations doesn't really bring business value. It's an alarming statistic. Keep that in mind. The next statistics I'd like to bring in mind is 1 out of 3 executives trust data enough to actually use it. So imagine the big pool of companies you know being the 3, and one out of these companies, the executives of these companies, they don't really trust the data that they own. That's another scary statistic. Okay. Now, 12, close to about 13 million an average yearly costs of poor data quality per organization. Again, this has to do with data quality, right? So it's costing organization close to 13 million, right? In poor data quality. All right. Now, these 3 statistics, as you can clearly see, is pointing to a defect in the whole conversation of data. And a defect here is one, data quality. The defect here is really understanding what value some of these data projects bring to business. The next thing is also appreciating data being appreciated at executive level, right? So you can clearly see that these are 3 big bottlenecks that we still need to solve. So yes, data is transformational, but we can only get data being truly transformational if we solve these three bottlenecks. And the scary part is it's not really a technology thing. It's not about Power BI being the best tool. It's not about a specific technology being the best tool or not. It's really a cultural issue. It's an ownership issue. It's an ability for us to clearly appreciate the fact that if we do not look at proper data quality, proper ownership, and a proper data culture, we will not achieve the transformational ambition of data that we seek to achieve. Right? So I'd like to move into the next set of slides, which will really speak into us building a data culture, a good data culture. Now, we cannot get to the proper decision-making scape if we do not build proper data cultures in our organizations. So my next slides are going to speak about how do we enforce proper data culture, all right? So let's zoom into us really understanding what we mean by data culture. I mean, this uh, topic of data culture has always been spoken in most circles I find myself, and I believe in most circles you also find yourself. But what do we mean when we say we need proper data culture? All right. So 6 key things come to mind. And the first thing is we need to have a shared language when it comes to data culture across the organization, across the business, wherever you find yourself. All right. The definition of revenue should be consistent across. The definition of what an active user is should be consistent across. When we talk about regions, are we talking about political regions? Are we talking about sales regions? Are we talking about administrative regions? When we're talking about revenue, is it before tax, after tax? You know, we need to have that clear definition for every single metric that we have. Now, for us to really achieve proper data culture without shared language around the metrics we have, data culture is not achieved. All right. The next should be about habitual curiosity. Now, what this basically means is we need to enforce and build in our organizations and companies the ability to constantly ask questions and be curious. Right? As data professionals, that should be one of the qualities that stands out. So you, as a data professional, you should be the one actually questioning a lot of 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 data you see. Right? The fact that data sits in a database is been maintained for the past 10 years doesn't mean it's quality data. Always ask questions. All right. So asking questions like what does the data say, or before making decisions on what I think. So basically looking at what is the data saying as against what I think in conversations, that sparks a data culture. So the ability to constantly look at, okay, I will look at what the data is saying first before building any judgment. That is what habitual curiosity really means. All right. Now, trust in the numbers, right? Now, this is key because we need to as data professionals, we need to spearhead the concept of trusting our numbers. Yes, if data is poor, we cannot trust the numbers, but you are a steward in ensuring that trust is built in the data that you manage and hold. Right. So basically, this pillar really speaks around you as a data professional. How do you enforce the mindset of trust? It starts from you. And then again, this point is really a point that stems to you on this webinar as a data professional. And I believe once you're on this webinar, you are either a professional or an aspiring data professional. So it starts with you. The next is clear ownership. Clear ownership around who owns data and who owns data quality. It's important. This is like the most important pillar, right? So as a data professional, usually people think you are the one responsible for maintaining the quality of the data. No, you are not responsible for that, right? You are just a steward. there should be somebody who is clearly held at the business level. When I say business level, if you find yourself in an organization where, I mean, most organizations have various compartments or departments, right? HR will be generating data, operations will be generating data, finance will be generating data. We need to have clear responsibilities at each department or at each compartment. Who owns data, right? When it comes to sales data, is it the sales team who owns the data? Do they own quality? Because they input data in the ERPs on a day-to-day basis. They input customer information in CRMs on a day-to-day basis. They should own the quality of data so that they consciously always go into the systems, making sure that invoices are updated, invoice numbers are correctly mapped, invoice costs are properly updated, sales costs are properly updated, product costs are properly updated. When it comes to HR, our HR data in terms of people are properly updated. People need to be held responsible for this actions. All right. So having clear ownership of data is very key. All right. Now we need to show evidence over hierarchy, right? Now the best argument wins, the best argument wins, not the most senior voice in the room. All right. Now we need to also build. This is a tough one to build because if you find yourself in an organization that respects hierarchy, you would always have senior people lording it over the juniors. All right. But I think this is a pillar where leaders or business leaders need to own, because if you are setting an organization to respect hierarchy over respecting the best argument, and again, the best argument here backed with data. Now, a good data culture in an organization does not respect hierarchy. If the data is pointing to a decline in sales, there's a decline in sales. If the data is pointing to high attrition rate, there is high attrition rate. So what do we need to do to fix that? All right. So this ties back to business leaders. For me, I feel this pillar really is connecting to business leaders. If business leaders do not build a culture of respecting evidence over respecting hierarchy, right? We lose the sense of having a proper data culture, right? Now the payoff. Okay, so the faster, calmer, better decisions and fewer expensive surprises, right? So I think this really has to do with, once we're able to tie all this in, right? What is the end game at the end of the day? All right, decisions are made faster, and we can actually achieve our goals faster. Okay, so again, in a nutshell, building a data culture really stems around these key pillars. There are more pillars, but I believe if we're able to properly own this and drive this as data professionals, we would go far. Okay. Now, let's zoom into the conversation of quality. All right. Now, quality really comes first in my view. All right. Now, every decision inherits the quality of the data, which is very true. If you are basing decisions on poor data, your decisions will be poor. Right? If the data is not properly structured and organized and cleaned, your decisions are going to be flawed. Now, one thing we should understand is 80% of the work is the dirty work. Right? A lot of times when we speak in data circles, we feel data analytics and data science is really about building dashboards and building models. It's not about the beautiful things you see. 80% of the work is the dirty work that a lot of people do not want to do, right? The finding and cleaning of data, where data sits, organizing where data sits, organizing how data is structured in our data bases, in our data lakes, cleaning data, right? Creating the proper relationships and mapping, creating the proper data dictionaries. Those are the dirty administrative background work that a lot of people don't enjoy. But for us to achieve better decisions, it depends on that 80% work that has been done. It's not about the dashboards. A dashboard is just a representation of the data that is already sitting in your data pools, your data lake. If the data is poor, you are going to have poor decisions. It's very important we understand this. Okay. Now, this is a clear analogy, the iceberg analogy, which helps us really visualize the chunk of work that is usually not the preferred work when it comes to the data space. A lot of times what we see are the reports, the dashboards, the insights, the models. But behind the scenes or under the iceberg or under the water, there's a lot of steps, a lot of work that the layman in the organization does not see. And this is where, as data professionals, we need to be to clearly communicate to business and let business understand that it's all about the dashboards. If our data mapping is not properly done, our dashboards will churn out bad results. If our data is not properly mapped, right, the models are not going to churn out the right insights. The predictions are not going to be correct. So again, it's I will keep stressing on this because day in, day out, we keep seeing these mistakes being done. I've done these mistakes before professionally. It's cost me. I've seen others do these mistakes before, costed them their jobs, right? And we need to be careful when it comes to this conversation of trying to really ensure that the hidden stuff are properly structured. It's very important. Okay, before we go into the fanciful things of dashboard building and model building. Okay. Now, let's zoom into another set of conversations, which really looks at how do we practicalize this? Yes, we need a proper data culture. Yes, we need data quality. But how do we actually put this into actual practice? All right. So there are frameworks, very simple frameworks that I use personally, and which I would like to actually bring to our notice. All right. Now, the first framework is to really understand that the data process is not a straight line, or the data manipulation and handling process does not operate on a straight line. It operates in a loop. Now, what I mean by a loop is you don't start from point A to point 6 and think it's done. It's usually maybe you start from point 1, end at point 3, you have to repeat, go back to point 1, then you move ahead and move up to point 5, and then it has to go back to point 2. So the process doesn't really go sequentially as you see it. It's usually in a loop, it's usually in cycles. So think of this, maybe instead of using a waterfall process, you are using an agile process, right? Where you always have in mind that there's a high possibility of you going back to step 1. All right. So the standard approach has always been you start by collecting your data, which is data capture. You clean your data, where you sanitize your data. You contextualize it for whatever analysis you want to build. You build your dashboards in contextualizations, and then you basically use it for your decision making, and then you create actions out of these decisions, and then you measure results. A lot of times we think the process is straightforward like this, or it's in a straight line. But usually you might start with data collection, you get to contextualization, you have to go back to collect additional data, or you have to go back and properly clean data, properly map data. You get to a level where maybe you have to take decisions with business. Business realizes that no, we need additional data, we need additional context. You go back to capture more data. You understand? So a lot of times the reality you find yourself in will be really in loops, right? And let's really build a mindset of appreciating to work in this loop. That is really the conversation of this framework. The framework is not really to sell the idea of being organized, starting from step 1 to step 6, but actually appreciating that each of these steps can loop at any time. And we need to be ready for that. And we need to also be ready to understand that these loops are necessary for us to properly achieve the decisions, properly achieve the actions we need to take as business, and even be able to measure the results, right? So it's very important we have this in mind. Okay. Now, I want to present to you one of the key pillars to really operationalize this data management, right? Now, the concept of data management, again, is not the fanciful things that you would want to hear in the conversation of data. A lot of times in data conversations, you want to hear of, oh, how do we build a specific dashboard? How do we build a specific metric? How do we build a specific model? A lot of times we are too quick to actually go into building what the user sees as against having a governance structure to it. Now, the data space is a well-structured space. Let's not think of the data space as a space for coders. Please, we are not developers. We are data professionals. Okay. And again, this is not a job to developers. I've been in that space myself, right? But even developers have proper frameworks that they follow. Documentation frameworks, managing Git, you understand, managing versions of code. It's the same mindset. Now, the mindset here is to understand that we need to properly apply the data management framework. Again, the conversation for today is not really to present to you any of the frameworks, but to really tune our minds towards ensuring that we are adopting these frameworks. All right. Now, we need to really give data a home and an owner. Very key. All right. Now, in giving data a home, first we need to identify that data needs to come from a single source of truth. It doesn't mean it needs to come from a single database. Don't confuse single source of truth with single databases. No. What single source of truth means is collectively as an organization, we need to certify and sign that data coming from table XYZ for sales is authoritative. Data coming from table YZN for revenue is authoritative. So we need to have that authoritative sign that this database, this table is a single source of truth for a single KPI or for a specific set of KPIs. It's very important. Now, back to the conversation of who owns what. All right. So we cannot do away with this. All right. So if data sits in a database, sits in a table, it must be owned by a department. It must be owned by a specific person. Ownership doesn't mean that that single person is the one responsible for updating or maintaining the database. The ownership really speaks around who ensures that one, the data is properly updated consistently, kept up to date, and data quality is constantly checked. That's what ownership speaks to, right? We need to also understand that there needs to be consistency in how we are defining KPIs, right? We need to have a structured KPI dictionary where we clearly define what each KPI is in our business. And these definitions must not sit on our desktops as data professionals. No, we need to clearly communicate this across the entire organization, right? If these KPIs are data sensitive KPIs like HR KPIs, for example, we need to communicate it to the right people, follow the right data protection protocols, all right, to ensure that one, we clearly define and we clearly document, all right. Now, the next is documentation and lineage. Now, this has to do with, are we clearly documenting how we are building dashboards, how we are building KPIs, right? Are we clearly documenting formulas? Are we clearly documenting data mapping lineages, all right? It's wrong for you as a data professional just to sit on your desktop, map data, and it sits in your head. Please, we have gone beyond that. Once data is mapped, please make sure you document it. It's housed at the directory that other professionals can handle or access, right? Now, we need to also set the right accesses for the right people, right? HR dashboards cannot be open to everybody, again, because of the sensitivity of data there, all right? If sales metrics are built in different hierarchies, right? If maybe management needs to see certain metrics as against maybe the sales team seeing certain metrics, let's set the proper access rights. If as a data professional, you do not control the management of access rights, you need to collaborate with different IT support teams to help with this process. All right. So again, this is just to really enforce the fact that data management is a key pillar for us to achieve our results. All right. Now, quickly moving on to the second pillar, which has to do with cleaning and sanitizing. I cannot stress this enough. All right. Okay. Now, the 6 pillars here are accuracy, very important. Okay. We need to ensure that in cleaning and sanitizing our data, we are conscious on ensuring that data reflects reality. Okay. That's accuracy. Okay. So accuracy doesn't necessarily mean that we need to hit a level of perfection, but it has to really reflect what is happening on ground. If on ground the sales teams are communicating that our sales are declining at a specific sales region and your data is pointing to a different truth, please check it. Okay. Now, data being complete, we need to ensure that empty fields that needs to be populated are populated. So this is where the conversation of ownership comes in. If you don't know who owns the data, how can you hold people responsible for non-complete data? Okay. Now, consistency. We need to ensure that data is consistent across the entire database, across the data lake. All right. So our date formats structured the same way. We cannot have month, days, year. And then in another table, you have days, month, year. In a separate table, you have year, month, date. No. If dates, the definition of date and format should be consistent across the entire pool. All right. The definition of sales regions, how they are structured, how they are labeled, should be consistent across the entire pool. Right. So any data that can be set within specific constraints has to be properly defined. Any data that has to be set within a specific format has to be properly defined. All right. Now, timeliness. Timeliness here has to do with how often are you refreshing your data. All right. So in terms of so this has to connect back to you data being complete. All right. So how often are you refreshing your data? Very key. All right. Now we need to also look at ensuring that there are no duplications in our data pool. Right. Again, this is a tricky one to manage, but there are a lot of scripts, a lot of workflows that helps you identify duplications. So duplications that not necessarily means that you have, if you are in a sales-driven organization where you are tracking sales for a specific product, you might see a table having the product names repeating. That is not duplication. All right. Duplication is you have the same records for each line, right? So the entries for each single field, line by line, are the same. Then that means they are duplication. That might impact the total output of KPIs. All right. Validity of data, very key. All right. So sorry, I might be jumping through some of the slides because of time, but I mean these are slides we'll share. I can freely share with you just to go through. All right. So again, this is to stress on the fact that we need to really look at ensuring that there's consistency across our data. These are just examples. I've already spoken across this. Now, the third pillar is a pillar of governance. All right. Now, governance here has to do, again, looking at the broader context, not just ownership, but also looking at just give me a moment. Okay, so governance really looking at how do we ensure that data is properly governed, right? So again, we need to picture data as data is an organizational. I'm trying to find the best word to actually define this, right? It's something we own as an organization, all right? Or it's something of value to an organization, right? It's intellectual property. That's the word I was trying to figure out. All right. Data is intellectual property to the organization. Now, when it comes to intellectual property management, there is always governance across it. And again, it baffles me how we do not appreciate the concept of governance when it comes to data. All right. Data is one of the highest intellectual property any organization can have. So why don't we put proper governance structures across data? All right. So first is data stewards. Now, the concept of data stewards is anyone who manages, touches, plays around with the data, navigates the data, is a data steward. Whether you are inputting or you are accessing or you are viewing or you are a data steward. All right. So the fact that you are interacting with data means you're a data steward, meaning you are part of the governance conversation. It's very important we have this in mind. So as part of the stakeholders we engage as data professionals, let's not only look at IT as a governance player or the data entry clerks or data entry specialists as part of the governance pool. People who are viewing reports are part of the stewards. People who are accessing it, people making decisions. So if you look at it broadly, every single person in the organization is a steward, one way or the other. But we need to properly organize stewardship in tiers and make sure that stewards are organized based on tiers. Because I mean, the risk that comes to each level of tier varies. Somebody who is entering data has a higher risk as against someone who's viewing the data. So let's have that in mind. Okay. Now, when it comes to standards and policies, it's very important. Okay, let's not just treat data conversations as an offshoot of IT. And so we want to leverage on the broad IT policies. No, please have separate clauses when it comes to data, standards, when it comes to policies around definitions, formats. Please document it as part of your policies. So if the data arm or the data engine of your organization sits under IT, don't just say IT has a policy, so green flag. No. Make sure that your section, which is data, actually has policies as part of your documentation of your standards and policies. Okay. Now, quality gates. Let's ensure that we set the quality gates. Basically, quality gates basically says, okay, if data does not meet these levels of quality, these levels of validation, it does not go into the final dashboard. That is what quality gates basically mean. So again, using sales, for example, if there's a sales dashboard, which sales executives always have to review on a day-to-day basis, as management has to review on a monthly basis, we need to ensure that data that is feeding to that dashboard goes through the proper quality checks or quality gates. All right. We need to constantly validate data. So that is why having the stewards, having steward hierarchies, having steward engagements are very key because your stewards end up becoming the team that validates your data. Okay. Cannot stress access and quality and security again. It's very key. All right. The people who need the access needs to be given proper access. All right. The fact that it's a sales report doesn't mean everybody in the organization needs to see a sales report. All right. At times, it's not really about trying to protect the data. It's really about usability. If I don't have to see sales, why do I need access to it? All right. So that again, we can clearly monitor who is entering the dashboards, who is entering the tables. Because if you are just granting everybody access and maybe there's a breach, it's hard to identify. But if you properly manage who is accessing what table, if there's a breach, you can actually identify where the breach sits. Okay. Now let's go into the next set of topics. All right. How do we make this stick? So again, I can stress this, even give you the slide deck, all right? But I just again want to build a mindset that helps some of these things stick so that it becomes something we can use on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Now let's start with the culture, all right? Now, your role. Okay, let's start with how you actually build a culture. Now, let's sell the idea that everybody who handles data, first start with the conversation of everybody who handles data is a steward. All right. Now, if you set that base, you set a conversation across the entire organization. People begin to shift their minds away from, okay, they see data being an IT thing or a data analytics thing, but being an everybody thing. Once it becomes an everybody thing, everybody takes ownership of the conversations. All right. That's how you set the culture in rolling. All right. First, ensure that the communication is clear, and the communication has to be that once you are touching data one way or the other, you are a steward and you are part of the conversation. So if it means you have periodic steerco meetings where you engage, engagement is very key. All right. Speak to people, let them understand their role, let them understand why they are needed in specific data quality checks. All right. You need to have those proper communications. So now I'm going to go through 3 tiers here. All right. The first tier is if you are new to data. All right. Now, if you are new to data in this space, you can always start from somewhere. If you find yourself in an organization where you are new to data, you've newly jumped into a data role, right? Ask the right questions. Now, the right question can start from you asking where a specific KPI sits, where a specific table sits, right? Where a specific metric sits, right? So trying to really understand where things are as a newbie in the data space is your first point of start. It builds that curiosity, it builds that mindset of constantly questioning and asking, right? So it's important as somebody who is new to data, you actually have this mindset in terms of helping you build a data culture, right? Now, the second tier is if you find yourself in an analyst role, right? If your role is to constantly analyze data, build reports, you are crunching numbers, you are doing data engineering, right? This is where I really expect us to begin to own the documentation and standardization, right? If it's something you've not been doing, I will really admonish us to do. If it's something you're already doing, continue to do it, but always keep a keen eye on it. Now, if you find yourself in a lead role where you are leading teams, where you are leading departments, right? Now you need to begin to own this and actually show the way. All right. Now you need to, one way you can actually own this is to reward subordinates who are doing the right thing when it comes to data. All right. So you can have a reward mechanism where if you realize that an analyst is properly documenting the dashboards he's building, he's properly documenting the metrics, he's properly documenting and standardizing tables, you can have a reward mechanism. Again, that is just to help push the culture so that others see that yes, it pays to have this mindset properly put in place. Okay. Now, I'd like to also look at some habits that we can begin to build. All right. So, the first habit is to properly define before you collect. It's very important. Okay. So a lot of times, again, this has to tie back to data protection. Again, I'm a data protection professional, so I cannot push this the most. So it's important we properly define before we collect. Okay. So what I mean by this is if you're in a space where you are yet to collect data on a specific metric or KPI, we need to have proper definitions. All right. Definition is not just you defining what a metric or a KPI is, but even understanding what this data is going to be used for. All right. Do you need all the data you're going to collect? All right. You need to collect data for the right purposes. Again, these are all data protection conversations. All right. So defining really doesn't really just look at you defining metrics, but properly appreciating what the data is going to be used for and ensuring that we are collecting the data for the right purposes. All right. Now, the next thing is for you to continuously to document. All right. So the agile methodology is to continuously document as you go, right? The waterfall mechanism will tell you that go through the steps, document at the end. But agile methodologies will let you know that you document as you go. So it's really for you to build an agile mindset as well, right? Because documentation, nobody likes documentation. Yes, AI is able to do the documentation for you these days. But it's important we appreciate the fact that documentation is a key item, right? All right, great. So again, for the lack of time, we might not go through almost all the slides. Yeah, quite a number of slides actually, but permit me to just focus on the key slides that I want us to really focus on, okay? Some are just me repeating things, but I will just focus on what matters, okay? So maybe let's have the conversation on actually setting some discipline, all right? Let me see if this is a relevant one for us. Yes. So again, just for the lack of time, for the previous slides, it's just me trying to put things into context, how we can begin to operationalize some of these things. But it's also important we put some of these things into context, right? So yes, you can have all these standards and systems in check, but it's also we have conversations around where data is heading to, all right? So one of the key areas where data is heading to, which again, I hope we are all aware. It's not really me to bring up some of these things, but data is becoming more of a product, all right? And again, what this means is we are moving from data being handled in tables to data being handled in models. Now, what does that mean? That simply means that we need to begin to think of, yes, after handling all these data quality checks, handling all these definition checks, our goal is to make sure that data is ready to be consumed by AI, right? So the end goal of all these things is to make sure that data is properly structured so that when we get to a level of bringing in an LLM to begin to consume, the LLM appreciates all the different definitions, all the different dimensions. So data is becoming more of a product. So again, shift your mindset away from seeing data as tables or databases to seeing data as models. So the concept of semantic models is a rich concept we need to embrace. All right. So semantic models again has to do with you building connected models, or sorry, connected tables in one view. All right. So that instead of having individual tables, you can have all these connected tables with their defined relationships, defined metrics inbuilt in that definition. All right. So real time and self-service models are also becoming a thing. All right. So self-service models ties into semantic models, which is key. All right. The conversation of AI cannot be stressed enough. And also the conversation around moving from dashboards into decisions. All right. So yes, we are in an era where we want to move away from just reporting what has happened to us beginning to look at what are the potential decisions that can be derived from data. All right. So again, for the lack of time, I'll just zoom into some key takeaways that we can, if there's still time for us to ask questions, we can ask. But four key takeaways, all right? So clearly, the conversation should focus on data being, yes, it is transformational. But for us to really achieve the transformational quality of data, there are a lot of background checks that we need to do. We need to set our culture in place and our culture right. We need to ensure that we are setting the proper governance structures in place, data cleaning being a key component of it. And again, the conversation of data culture should be an organizational-wide conversation. It shouldn't just sit under IT or sit in data. Okay, so pardon me if the last sessions or sections were sped up, but I'll share the slides with you. I'm not going to gatekeep anything. So you can also have access to them. So I guess this should bring us to a time where we can ask questions if there are any. So Daniel, back to you.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, Rhoda, for that insightful presentation. I'm sure we all found this session valuable and taking away some practical lessons that we can apply like Roger said, he'll be sharing the slides with us and also be sharing with you all. So, I mean, give it up for him. He has done so well. I want to see some reactions.
That was a good one. Thank you so much, Roger.
Yeah,
I really
indeed.
enjoyed your presentation. Top notch.
Thank you
Thank you.
too.
Okay. So we will now move to our question and answer session. If you have any questions you would want to ask Ruja, you can raise your hand and we'll give you the opportunity to ask the questions. You can also leave them in the chat box and read them out for everyone to hear. Roger will answer them as well. So if you've been wondering about how or you've been about something during the presentation, I think this is the perfect opportunity for you to ask those questions. Okay. So please, we'll be taking a question from Sharawuddin Mohammed. Please, the floor is yours. You can go ahead.
Um, please, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mohammed.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. I just joined. I joined about 10 minutes ago, so I missed a lot today. Please, can somebody maybe give me a brief or overview of what happened today?
Yeah, so Mohammed, let me do that. So again, yeah, I hope you're aware of the topic. The topic is, data. Let me just go back there. So it's easier.
Transformational role of data.
Yes. So the data is the topic is the transformational role of data in decision making, right? So my whole conversation has been, yes, data is transformational, no two ways about it. But for us to achieve that level of transformation, there are a lot of housekeeping stuff we need to do. All right. One is setting proper governance structures around data. Two is ensuring that we hold people responsible for the data that they are responsible for. Three is ensuring that we build a data-driven culture across organizations we find ourselves. All right. And then we ended up by trying to really appreciate where data is going in a nutshell. Right. But the recording, I'm sure Blossom is recording. I'll be sharing the slides too with everybody. So there's no problem on that.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Roger. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, boss.
You're welcome.
Do we have some more questions? Okay. David, you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, hello, good afternoon.
Hi
Um,
there.
I wanted to ask, you see the part where you were talking about hierarchy. When it comes to data, we don't, um, we shouldn't make decisions based on hierarchies, but more of where the data is pointing towards. So, let's say you are in an institution where they see hierarchy, like they seem to give a lot of respect to hierarchy. But then also as a data analyst or a data scientist, you know what is happening since you are playing around the data, you are seeing the ins and the outs, and you are giving, let's say, you've handled it, you've worked on it, and you are giving them the output, and they are opposing it because they think if a senior has spoken, you don't have to challenge or say anything opposing to what the person is suggesting you do. Meanwhile, we are working with data and we need to work with facts. In that situation, what do you do? Do you just follow what they tell you to do, or you find a way to tell them what the data is actually pointing to? Because as far as I know, if you are working with data, you have to uphold your integrity. Because if you if you do something they tell you to do and it comes out with um the wrong output, they were the wrong results they were expecting, the blame might point back to you. So I'm asking, in that situation, what do you do? What do you actually do?
So David, I mean, I clearly understand that. Now, first things first, such an organization, let's call it as it is, that is poor organizational culture in the first place, right? Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, if the numbers are pointing to a certain direction and the fact that you are the director of whatnot, you come and say my decision is final, and the numbers are pointing that we are suffering. That's a bad culture in the first place. But let's put that aside. Now, as a data professional, I mean, one of the key things you are responsible for is one, reporting on the numbers and also giving context to what the numbers mean. Now, that is your power, and that is where your power ends. You cannot direct business strategy, all right? You cannot direct the business where the business goes to. That is a management thing. Unless you find yourself in a management role as a data professional, which hardly I see any data professional sitting in C-suite level, right? So use your power. Your power is to communicate the numbers and end it there and clearly communicate the numbers. And also, aside just communicating the numbers, let business know what the implications are. If the numbers are pointing to a decline in the sale of a specific product, and maybe that product is one of our highest or valuable products in a specific region. If we do not act in the next 5 months, what would that mean to our revenue? So have those communications, create the linkages, and then put it out there. Everybody sees the numbers. Numbers don't lie. You see, so it's one thing to just say, oh, sales are declining. It's another thing to tell a story around if sales decline, then what? Do you understand? So it's a better way. It's better you communicate around telling a story with the data than just saying sales is declining. Again, it's at C-suite level, sales is declining. So what? So the so what conversation turns things around because so what would actually answer if we do not take action, ABC will happen. All right. So for me, that is how I would have handled this.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Please, we'll be taking our next question from Philip Semesa. Please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi,
Good
Philip.
afternoon.
Thank you very much. In your presentation, you mentioned that at every point in time, we must make sure that we leave data cleaner than we met. So it appears to me that there is no such thing as completely clean data or 100% clean data. So as a data analyst, when working with a data set, at what point do you then have the confidence that, okay, my data is clear enough for me to work with?
Okay, so maybe you misconstrued me, but I mean the conversation is really not on looking for 100% quality, right? Yes, quality is a key conversation, and you are spot on. No matter how we try and keep a keen eye on data quality or cleanliness, one way or the other, you still keep finding issues, right? So it's picture this to be more of having a mindset than you having a goal. It's two different things. Your goal might be I want the data to be clean and spot on, as against I'm always going to ensure that I am looking out for data quality anytime I'm handling data. They are two different conversations. All right. So one is a mindset conversation, and one is you are obsessed with data quality. And I feel at times if you are too obsessed you might lose sight of the other things which are important because there are so many things which are important when it comes to data. So data quality is just one component. All right. So it's more of a mindset shift or you having that mindset of being quality conscious than you being overly obsessed on, I want data to be clean. Yeah, you spend all hours trying to clean a specific table, right? And don't forget, people are adding as you are cleaning, more errors are being introduced, you know? So again, it's a mindset that you need to hold. One focuses on having a mindset, another focuses on obsessing on the action, which I don't think obsession is the key, but the mindset is the key. Okay.
All right. So we'll be taking our next question from Next Gen GH. Next Gen GH. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes,
Okay.
but we need to know your name.
My
We
name is
we can't
Bob.
refer to you
It's
as Next Gen
unfortunate. I
GH.
am using my
Okay, that's fine.
my office device, so I'm not able to use my personal details. Yeah. So my question will be two. I mean, one will be the focus on data stewardship. Now, in your presentation, you talked about how we should name ownership of data and all that. My question would be that the current dispensation of AI and I mean tech tools and all that, how do you manage to make sure that devices that I mean stores data, you have I mean rights ownership of them? Maybe I'm not getting the import very well, so I would want you to throw more light on that with
Okay,
the
so
advent of AI and all that.
yeah, so first let's clearly understand what stewardship is. So stewardship is basically, so stewardship, picture stewardship to be the broader pool. Anybody who is touching data one way or the other is a steward. Whether you are inputting data, you are viewing a dashboard, once you are working with data, you are a steward. Now, inside a steward is a data owner. So steward, picture it to be the bigger pool. Steward, the owner is in the steward. So the owner is somebody who you are responsible for making sure that data is constantly updated in a specific table. Data is up to date and data clearly maps to reality. And you're also the owner of data quality. So that's a data owner. All right. Now that we have these two clearly defined, let's look at how this ties to AI. All right. So
Okay.
is your question really on now that AI, we are at a level of agentic modeling where AI agents are able to access tools via MCPs and even access devices. And
Right.
hence, the AI agents are also churning out data. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's what I'm.
Okay. But let's also clearly understand that we are I don't know any organization that is yet allowing AI to modify tables. If you are at that level, then I believe you are super advanced. But again, I don't know. Please, I don't know everything. So if there's any organization where there's an AI agent managing tables and is able to update sales numbers in a table and there's no human in a loop, I've not seen that yet. So even if the agent is updating a table, for example, there's always a human in a loop. And the human in a loop always checks for the validity because, again, agents can make mistakes. Hallucination is still true. All right. Hallucination is still a reality, even as AI models keeps advancing. So I mean, the human factor cannot be taken out. So even if you are building your architecture around AI agents updating tables, the advice is please, the human in the loop is very important because I've seen too many use cases where something like this has been tested and a whole table was deleted by the agent or table were manipulated with false sales numbers or false information. So we are not there yet.
Okay.
Let's not lie to ourselves. We are not there yet. But when we get to that level, I believe the whole conversation on this architecture will definitely shift. But the human in the loop is certainly key for this type of setups.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Next gen, I didn't hear your real name. I think you mentioned your name, but I didn't get it. Could you please
Okay,
repeat
so
it?
my name is Bright.
Bright. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bright. So please, we'll be taking our next question
I
from
think there are some
Joseph.
questions in the chat, Daniel. It's a
All
question
right.
from Gideon asking to clarify the difference between data analytics and business data
Okay.
analytics.
So before we go to Bright, we would want to read, I would want to read Gideon's question out loud. Gideon said, can you please clarify the difference between data analytics and business data analytics?
Okay, so Gideon, I don't know how to. It's just semantics in my view. What I mean by that is it's just you mixing words. Data analytics is data analytics. You are just trying to make sense of data, tell a story around data, right? And then make sure that data is properly structured. But in most spaces, when you say business data analytics, you are you are focusing more on somebody who takes the heart of also understanding the business context. So in most spaces, the data analyst is more of a technical person, somebody who just knows how to build dashboards, knows how to code in SQL. They know the technical stuff, but they do not really appreciate business in terms of how does business work? How is operations linked to sales? How is sales linked to finance? How is finance linked to HR? In my view, a business data analyst will be somebody who appreciates the business context as well. All right. And it's not just the technical person, but you have both hats. All right. But Blossom, you are the experts in this, so please, if you have more context, you can add on to David.
All right. Um, Gideon, I think I responded in the chat box and I'll be reading that out too. So when we talk about data analytics, data analytics focuses on analyzing data to extract insights across any field. And when we mention business data analytics, that one specifically talks about applying data analysis to solve business problems and support business decision making. Please, are we good? All right. So we'll be taking our next question from Joseph Okona Didi. Joseph, you can unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon. Please, can you hear me?
Joseph, your voice is a bit muffled.
Okay. I'm using input. So you are just disconnected.
I can hardly hear you. If you can just type it out, I think that would be better. I can hardly hear you.
Okay, please can you hear me now?
Better. Much better.
Okay, so my question would be my first question would be, how do you know you have enough data to make a reliable decision when it comes to like data analysis in an organization? And the second one would be, how will data and how artificial intelligence and machine learning help transform data-driven decision making?
Okay, so how do you know whether you have enough data to make decisions, right? That's a tricky one. I mean, you cannot always tell. In my view, it's quite tough to tell. But I mean, you always start from the point of, I mean, how long or for how long have you been storing whatever data you have, right? And even before we go to the how long conversation, we also need to appreciate, do you clearly understand what you want to measure? first, right? Are you measuring sales? Are you measuring what metric are you want to measure? All right. What time frame do you want to measure this within? You also need to clearly define that. So when you are measuring something, you're always measuring it against time, right? No matter what metric you're measuring, we always measure it against time, right? So once you clearly define that, then you now look at, okay, the data I have, can it go within that time frame? I'm trying to measure it. And usually most metrics we want to look at year to date. You want to look at year to go. We want to look compared to last year. We want to look maybe 2 years behind, 5 years behind. So that time series measurement also helps you look at, okay, do I have enough data to measure that? All right. So first, understand what you want to measure first. Do you clearly understand it in the first place? If you do, the next conversation is what's the time frame within which you want to measure this? Then that helps you answer that question. All right. I think that's how I will handle this. And I think most people will handle this. Now the next question is around AI. Can you stress on that again? I lost my the AI
Okay,
question.
please,
Can
I'm
you?
coming.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so my question was with the introduction of artificial intelligence into organizations, how will artificial intelligence and machine learning transform data-driven decision making?
I mean, it will clearly transform data-driven decisions. But again, let's not forget that AI relies on data. I mean, we always lose fact of that sight, and it baffles me how we lose sight of that fact. AI is AI because of data. So if you're even introducing AI into your organization to either consume your data's organization and now use that for decision making, if data is not properly structured, like we've always been saying, you're going to get garbage out. All right. So AI certainly is going to transform how we make business decisions, right? But if we want AI to sit within the context of the organization consuming organizational data, we cannot do away with the quality conversation. We understand. You cannot do away with all these cultural conversations we are having about governance conversations. You cannot do away with them. All right. So it's not really trying to answer whether AI is transformational or not. It is transformational, but there's a dependency to that transformation, which is the quality conversations we are having, the governance structure conversations we are having. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So we'll be taking our last question due to the lack of time. We'll be taking our last question from Joshua and Chroma. Joshua, please. Joshua, please, you can go ahead and ask your question.
All right. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Joshua.
Thank you, Roger, for the insightful presentation. And I think the statistic you gave were staggering and very alarming in that 85% of the 85% of the what data professionals do, companies do not believe in it, and 1 out of 3 professionals accept the reports of like they
Executives.
trust executives trust in the results of data analysts and other things. I think, don't you think that if we are able to um, if you are able to you see where the source of where this data is coming from is very important to be able to transform your data to glean insights from it and also use that data to inform the decision we make. Don't you think that as data professionals, when we push for a policy or something that will make sure that where the source of our data that we are getting is at least at a level like attain certain quality, before we transform the data and at the end of the day use it for decision making. It will help because you also talked about um, data meeting some quality for us to be able to analyze it and other things. Don't you think that when we push for policies or ways that before we begin the transformation, the data should meet certain standard so that we can be able to transform the data and we'll make insights from it for executives to trust our reports we make will help very much. Because in this era of big data, if we are not able to get quality data, it means it will affect our analysis and it will also lead to executives not trusting our reports. I want you to address that. What do you think? Do you think that we should focus on pushing for getting like quality data so that it will make the transformation and our analysis and the output we get better
So,
for
so
the
Joshua,
data to be used for?
yeah, Joshua, I think this is a solid one. Okay, but I want all of us to look at all these conversations we are having. Look at it from the bigger picture. What I mean by bigger picture is, let's start with the first statistic. How do we drop the statistic drastically? All right, so that a lot of the projects we churn out as data professionals, business sees the value out of it. Okay, now if we properly define KPIs, what is revenue? What is sales? Right? How is sales calculated? If we do all that and we properly define who owns what data, all right, what table? So there's a table in our database. It's supposed to be updated consistently. Quality has to be checked by somebody in sales. There's a specific person that owns it, right? If we go ahead and clearly define the quality gates before data gets into our dashboard, we need to check with all stakeholders and make sure that stakeholders validate and then check it off. Now, if you look at the bigger picture, it saves you, the data professionals, a lot of risk, or it saves you from a lot of risk in reality, because there's visibility into what you are doing clearly. You are engaging almost everybody in the organization before you build a dashboard. So if something goes wrong, there's an issue with data quality, we know that Masa, the data owner has to be held responsible. If there's something wrong with the calculation, it means that during our stakeholder engagement, whoever validated the data did not give the correct calculation, right? So all these things, they may look like they are mundane processes, but if you look at it from the bigger picture, one, it saves us as data professionals a lot of headache. Two, it creates visibility, all right? Because you are basically engaging several people before you build a dashboard. So by the time you are building a dashboard, one, everybody knows the outcome. Everybody knows how the things are calculated. Everybody knows who owns what for this to be properly structured and organized. All right. So these three metrics, we can drastically reduce them if we properly adopt some of these measures we've discussed here. All right. So again, I want us to look at it from the bigger picture. And also, let's not be too quick to judge these problems to be a problem of technology. It is not a problem of technology. Technology is as good as what you turn it to be, right? AI was never meant to be used for planning how bombs are going to be thrown, but look at what is happening in our world today, right? So it really boils down to how we as humans really structure this to one, augment some of these issues that may come up at the end of the day. All right. And I feel that these frameworks and conversation we are having is one, to protect ourselves as professionals and create the necessary visibility so that some of these issues are resolved before they appear.
Okay, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Daniel, over to you if there are any more
Yeah.
questions. If not, then that's fine with me.
Okay, so there are no more questions. But for the sake of those who were not here at the beginning, I would want to take us through who we are, what Blossom is, and the reason for which we are here. So I'll be sharing my screen one more time. All right. So before we wrap up, like I said, I would want to take a few minutes to tell you a little about Blossom Pro and our certification in business data analytics program. So at Blossom Pro, our mission is to equip professionals with globally recognized skills that will enable them to use business analytics to solve real-world business problems and make data-driven decisions with confidence. So what makes our program unique? When I talk about the program, I'm talking about the Certified Business Data Analytics program. So what makes our program unique is that we don't just focus on technical skills, no. We also provide mentorship, career guidance, and a supportive learning community of professionals who help you build your portfolio and showcase your capabilities, and also position yourself for a new career opportunity. So the IIBA CBDA designed for professionals who want to develop their ability to apply data analytics in challenges. So through the program, the participants will gain some practical knowledge and skills that will help them understand their business needs. They would also analyze data, generate meaningful insights, and support better business decisions. So for those who are interested in becoming certified, our next IBA certification in business data analytics cohorts will start on 14th September 2026. And the registration fee for the next class is 150 cedis. So the good thing is we are running a discount 24th, which is today, to 31st of July. 10% discount actually. So if you want to know more about the next cohort, the amount, everything, you can reach out to me after the session or on 020-624-8193. I've actually left some numbers in the chat box and an email where you can reach us on. So if you are interested in becoming certified, this is your chance. Also, we'll be sharing more details about the program, the curriculum, the certification program, and answering all the questions that you have during our next info session. So on 8th August, we'll be having an info session. This is the flyer for the upcoming info session. You can also reach out. And so I believe there's a link that has been left in the chat box where you can register for the next info session. So we are far behind time, but I'll give us like 2 minutes, everyone 2 minutes to click on the link in the chat box and register for our next info session, just so you don't miss out on anything, any detail about the certified business data analytics. So please let me know, send a reaction when you are done registering for the info session. There, can we see the link? Oh, please, before I conduct some reactions, I want to see all of us send reactions that we are done registering for the program. I mean, the info session. Okay. Okay. I'm seeing done. All right. Okay, so we can move the session with you all. So once again, I would want to say a very big thank you to everyone who joined us today for the session, for taking time to be a part of this session. Okay, before I continue, I want to see down from 10 people. 10 people have to tap on the link and register for the next info session before we continue. I'll continue. Okay, Samsung is done as well. Okay. Okay, Isaac is done. Can you address our concerns on the WhatsApp platform? Yes, we can. We can. So I'll reach out to you after the session. Done. Okay, so I think I have, or is it seven? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay, so 3 more people sessions will close. And please, I hope I'm audible. If you can hear me, send some reactions. Okay, okay,
Sorry, I was a bit
okay.
distracted. I think you said something. Can you repeat yourself?
Oh, okay. So I said there's a link in the chat where we have a info session coming up next month, 8th August. And there's a link in the session where you can register for the upcoming info session. So before we close this session, I would want each and everyone to tap on the link and register. Okay. I think we have quite a number of people who have registered. Thank you so much. So I would want each and everyone to help me thank our speaker for the day, Roger Michael Kaimba, for sharing his knowledge, insights, and expertise with us. Roger, we truly appreciate your time and the value you've brought to this session. And for everyone who has joined us, we hope you found today's webinar insightful and valuable. And we encourage you to take what you've learned today and apply it in your work and career. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you once again, and goodbye.